Today we're going to be graphing using slope-intercept form. If your equation is in y equals mx plus b form, this is called slope-intercept. The m is the what? The slope. The b is the what? No. The y-intercept. So the number that's attached to the x is your rate, which is the same thing as slope, yes? It does not matter if they're switched in spots. The number that's attached to the x, the coefficient, is the rate. Are y'all paying attention? Yep. The other number, the constant, is the y-intercept. Okay? So the m, you need a rise over run. The b, the y-intercept, is your starting point. So let's look at these three equations at the top and let's identify the slope and y-intercept. So everybody look at the first one. The first thing you need to ask yourself is this equation in slope-intercept form? So which number is the m, the slope? 3. This is your m. Oops. Positive 3. And what is your y-intercept? If I wanted to make the slope a rise and a run, what would I put the 3 over? 1. All right, let's go to the next one. Is this equation in slope-intercept form? No. So what would I have to do before I identify the slope and y-intercept? Rearrange it. What needs to be moved so that this says y equals? How would I get rid of a positive 3x? So I have y equals negative 3x plus 2. Now I can identify the slope, the m, which is what? Negative 3. What could I put that over? 1. And what is the y-intercept? 2. Okay, the last one, is this in slope-intercept form? No. What form is this in? Standard form. Do y'all remember? We just learned this like a few days ago. This is standard form. Remember ax plus by equals c? If I wanted to graph this and nobody told me what to do, what would I do? Use the intercepts. But today we're not using intercepts, we're using slope intercepts. So I'm going to rearrange it. How would I get rid of the 4x? So I have negative 2y equals negative 4x plus 20. How do I get rid of the negative 2? Divide everything by negative 2, and then I have to simplify. So I would have y equals negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2x minus, what's 20 divided by negative 2? Minus 10, or plus negative 10. All right, what's the slope here? 2 if I wanted it as a rise over run. And what's the y-intercept? Say it again. Negative 10. Very good. All right, so now we're going to learn how to graph using slope-intercept form. So again, the first thing you have to ask yourself is the equation in slope-intercept form? Now you're going to identify the slope. So what is it? Positive 5 over 1. And what is the y-intercept? Negative 3. Once you know these two pieces, you're simply going to start at the y-intercept. So I'm going to go to the y-axis and I'm going to put a dot at -3. So here's the y-axis, here's 0, -1, -2, -3. That's going to be where I start. From that dot, I am going to rise and run my slope. If it's positive, my rise will go up 5, and if this is positive, my run will go right 1. And that's the most important part that you understand. If it's positive, you're going up and to the right. Could I also go down and to the left? Because 2 negatives make a, but we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so I'm going to go up 5. So take your pencil, count up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold it, and go right 1, and then put a dot. You should do this at least where you have 3 dots if possible. So up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 1. Now, what I was saying earlier is, could I go down and left? Because those would both be negatives, and 2 negatives make a. So I could go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and left 1, and you'll see it falls on the same straight line. Yes? Why does that matter? Because sometimes your y-intercept might be so high up here that down is the only way you can graph another point. Okay, so take your straight edge and connect your dots. Put arrows on both sides showing that it would keep going forever and ever. All right, the next one. Is this in slope-intercept form? No. What form is this in? It's in standard. So if I want to do slope-intercept, I have to rearrange it. How would I get rid of a positive 3x? Subtract. So I have -3y equals -3x plus 12. How would I get rid of this -3? Divide everything by -3. That cancels out. I have y equals, what's a negative divided by a negative? So I have positive 1x. You can, but you need a slope, right? He said, can I just put x? Yes, he's correct. You can. What's 12 divided by -3? So -4. All right, write out what is your slope. I need a rise and a run. 1/1. What is your y-intercept? It's not 4. It's -4. All right. I want y'all to try to graph this one real quick without me. You only have to do 3 dots, but you can do as many as you want. At minimum, you have to have 2 or you can't make a line. Okay, make sure you did it correctly. You should have started on the y-axis at -4 and rose up 1, right 1. Yes? All right, and connect your dots. Any questions? Turn the page. All right, same thing here. What do I have to do first before I identify the slope and y-intercept? Rearrange it. How am I going to move this positive x? So I have 4y equals -x plus 6. How do I get rid of the 4? Divide everything by 4. All right, so I have y equals -1/4 x. Do y'all agree that there's a 1 on top? Yes. Plus, what does this simplify to? 3/2, right, which is 1.5. Why did I want it as a decimal? Because I'm going to graph it and I need to know where to put the dot at. All right, so I need a slope and a y-intercept. Now, you have to decide which number you want to assign the negative to. It either has to go to the 1 or the 4, and it does not matter. You get to pick. Which one?
1.
All right, so -1 on top, 4 on bottom, and my y-intercept is 1.5. So let's talk about the slope before we get started. Since the rise is -1, instead of going up 1, I'm going to go down 1. Since the 4 is positive, my run will still go to the right. Are y'all good? Could I have switched those? Yes, and I'll show that in a minute. So I've already found 1.5 on the y-axis. Could you have counted by 0.5s since these are numbered? You could have. All right, here we go. I'm going to go down 1. So in the middle here, I'm going to be in the middle here. And then I'm going to go right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So every dot I put is going to be at a 0.5, right? Not everybody's paying attention. All right, do it one more time. Down 1, right 4. Now let's talk about, could I have assigned the negative to the 4 instead of the 1? So if I did 1 over -4, I would go up 1, yes? And where would I go here? Left 4. So let's go back to our starting point. Go up 1 and left 4. Does it still fall on the same straight line? Yes, and that's how you know if you're doing it right or not. Like, it has to fall on the same line. Because these are all what type of equations? Linear. They're all going to make a straight line. Y'all want to try the next one on your own? Go. Check it with mine when you're finished. Now we're going to talk about parallel lines. Who remembers, we briefly covered this. What will parallel lines have that's got to be the same? The slopes will be the same. So let's look at them. All right, this is where I want you to have two different colored, like a pencil and a red pen or something. I want you to go graph this equation first. So what's the slope? I'm waiting. 2 over. And what's the y-intercept? All right, so go graph it in one color. Okay, you should have your first line graphed, yes? Now let's go graph the next one. Before I go graph this one, what do I have to do? Get rid of the 2 by dividing everything by 2. So I have y equals 2x plus 3. It's supposed to be let's change it. Let's change the y-intercept. Let's put, pretend that was an 8. Because that's not parallel, that's the same line. Now it'll be 4. Is that better? Okay, so I need a slope of 2 over 1 and a y-intercept of 4. So go graph that one.
Different color, right?
Different, yeah, use a different color. Do you see that when they have the same slope, they will be parallel lines because they will never intersect? Yes? And we learned this when we were solving equations. If these were equations and I wanted to solve them where x and y have the same value, the answer would be no solution because they're never going to touch. But today, we're not doing equations, we're just graphing, and we would say, yes, these are parallel lines because their slopes are the... So parallel lines will have the same slope, but a different y-intercept, which is why I had to change that other one because that wouldn't work. All right, let's try the next one. What's the slope for this one? 4 over, and what's the y-intercept? All right, go graph it. Now, this is one of the ones I was telling you. Sometimes your y-intercept is so high up that if your slope is positive, you can't go up and right. So what are you going to have to do? Go down and left. You can't go up and right, you go down and left. So I'm going to change this rise to -4 and the run to -1 because 2 negatives make a positive. So did I change the value? No. I just don't want to go up and right. I want to go down and left. So down 4, left 1. Down 4, left 1. Is that still a positive slope? Yes or no? Yes. Do you see how I didn't have room to go up and right? My graph wasn't big enough. All right, the next one, I have to rearrange first. How am I going to get rid of this -8x plus? So I have 2y equals 8x plus 10. How do I get rid of the 2? Divide everything by 2. So I have y equals 4x plus 5. Do I have to graph this to know it's going to be parallel? How do I know it's going to be parallel? Their slopes are the same. Now I'm going to go graph it, but I don't have to know that. Here we go. My y-intercept is 5. Oh, my slope is 4 over 1. My y-intercept is 5. Up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. If I want to put another dot, which way am I going to have to go? Down and left. Down 4, left 1. And they should be parallel. My ruler was too wide at the bottom, but again, to be parallel lines, what do they have to have the same? The slope and the y-intercept will be different. All right, go to the back. This was a word problem, but the actual problem got cut off. It is talking about the cost to produce a commercial and air it. So the cost is on the y-axis, the number that you're able to show your commercials on the x-axis. They gave you 2 equations. Now, who can tell me right away, what do you see? The slopes are so they are going to be parallel lines. Okay, so let's go graph one of them in red and one of them in black or pencil. I'm going to start with this one. My slope is 150 over 1, and my y-intercept is 300. So I'm going to go to 300 and put a dot on the y-axis. What are they counting by on the y-axis? So I'm going to go up 150. So here's 100. Here's another 50, and go to the right 1. And is the x-axis counting by ones? Yes. So right there. And I'll do it a few more times. Up 100, that's here. Another 50, right 1. Up 150, right 1. And that's enough. The second one, I have a slope of 150 over 1, but this time my starting point is 400. So I'm going to start at 400. I'm going to go up 100, another 50, and right 1. Up 100, another 50, right 1. And they better be parallel lines because their slopes are the same. Okay, at the bottom, we're going to answer the question. It says, based on the graphs, what is the difference? What does difference mean? Subtract. So I'm going to subtract. What is the difference of the cost to produce each commercial and air it 2 times? Well, let's go see how much it costs the first equation to air it 2 times. So I'm going to do 150. I'm just using the equation, yes? Times what? Times 2 plus 300. For the second equation, I'm going to plug in 2 as well. I'm going to do 150 times 2, but I'm going to add 400. Plug that in my calculator. And I get $600 for this one. And I get $700 for this one. She said I could have also just looked at the graph. Absolutely. That'd probably save me some time, right? All right, we'll do it for, now it wants to know for what? For 4 times. So I would do 150 times 4 plus 400. 150 times 4 plus 300. And over here I have 900, and over here I have 1,000. It says, what do you notice about the difference in cost? It's always $100 more. Why? Because they have the same slope, but their y-intercepts are $100 apart. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to pass out the assignment. On the assignment, at the top, it says identify the slope and y-intercept. So I want to see for number 1, m equals b equals. 2 questions. So let's do number 1 together. Here is the y-intercept. Don't let anything else confuse you. Where does the line touch the y-axis? Where is it touching at? 1. Then my rise is 2, my run is 1, and is it positive or negative? So what's 2 divided by 1? That's my answer. If you put 2 over 1, I would take it, but in a simplified term, you would never do that. That is for you to graph with, okay? All right, go down to the next part. Identify the slope and y-intercept of each equation. Well, look at number 7. What's the slope? What's the y-intercept? Now, but look at number 10. Do you see the slope? What is it? But do you see a y-intercept? What does that mean then? It's 0. It passes through 0. That's called a proportional equation because it passes through 0. We don't write plus 0. We just don't write it. So if you don't see a y-intercept, it's 0. So this would be 1/2. This would be 0. At the bottom, you're going to graph the equation. How many dots do I want? Unless it won't possibly happen. Like if you have a slope of 10 over 1, you're not going to be able to put but 2 dots. But if you can put 3 dots, I want 3. You need to identify your slope, which is going to be 1 over 1. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes.
And what's my y-intercept? And then I'm going to go graph. Be careful because number 14 is counting by 2s. So be careful on that one. Flip to the back. Same thing right there. Also, remember that, like number 20, where it says 1/5 x minus 4, your y-intercept is -4. Does that make sense? Okay, go to 25 through 26. It says, tell whether the graphs of the two equations are parallel. Then circle yes or no. What's the only thing you're looking for? The slopes are the same. All right. And then do the word problem. Guys, I better see that you've attempted the word problem. They literally gave you the equations. All you're going to do is graph them and then answer a question. If you show up and you haven't graphed them, that shows me you're not trying. Because that's literally the whole assignment is graphing. Make sense? Remember that if it doesn't give you a y-intercept, your y-intercept is 0. Get busy.